Hi everybody, welcome to VTS23. This is for January 2007. That's right, another year, 2007. Welcome to what we're going to talk about next on the grand old video tutorial service trade. Okay, that was enough silliness. All right. Anyways, good to have you guys. Hope everybody had a great year-end, New Year, holiday thing going on for you guys. It was hectic like crazy for us here. Moved into our new apartment. Long story. We were house sitting a house for missionary friends here in town. They came back. We needed an apartment. We got an apartment. We moved in 2 days before Christmas. The day of Christmas, had a big dinner party. We were without internet here for almost a month, and then just to get the internet here was crazy. Anyways, all that stuff. Here we are, VTS23, January 2007, where we talk about the scariest thing known to CG animators on the planet. The post-blocking cleanup phase. Yes, this is scary stuff. This is the stuff that a lot of animators struggle with. Okay, if there's one question, you get a bunch of animators together about 2 or 3 years ago. Okay, you get a bunch of professional animators together around the lunch table, and ask them, "What's the one thing you struggle the most with?" You would have gotten probably 2 answers. Maybe 3, okay? 1 would be my acting, 2 would be my polish, and 3 would be that stage right after blocking where everything just looks so bad, okay? And what happened was that people had to kind of discover their working process, all right? It took us a while to kind of figure this stuff out. And everybody kind of has their own way of doing it, and as you might have guessed, I have my way of doing it as well. I'll show you my way because it's the way I understand, it's the way that works for me, and I think it makes sense and is easily replicated in a sort of methodical way. I don't want to be too methodical about animation because, hey, it's animation, you got to keep it fun, right? But it's that scary stage. See, it always happens. You know, you go, and if you're a blocking, a step block, hold poses kind of guy, if you kind of do things the way I kind of advocate, where you think about terms of drawing and you hold those drawings and you get your timing worked out that way, you go show that to the director, he likes it, he gives you the go-ahead, and you're like, yeah, this is great. And you come back to your desk, you're like, oh, I'm all geeked, I'm ready to go. And the first thing you do is like, select it all and turn it into spline and hit play blast. You watch it, you're like, what happened? And it's just, there's a couple of things that you missed, okay? It's really 2 things, and we're going to take some time and we're going to talk about these 2 things, all right? First up, patience. Yeah, okay. All right, the reason why I spent 3-4 months talking about breakdowns and the importance of breakdowns before I ever got to the post-blocking stage polish is because the breakdowns are kind of the key to helping you move past that initial blocking phase into good cleanup, okay? You can almost think in terms that good breakdown work, what we talked about in VTS, 18, 19, 20, 21, okay, that stuff right there, that actually is your first pass of cleanup. Yeah, you don't even think of it because we're like, well, gosh, everything's still stepped. Aren't we still blocking? And people always ask that question, well, how many poses, how many drawings should I put in? How many breakdowns do I need? And the answer is, depends. You try to think about these things methodically. You try to think about them in an orderly sense. Okay, well, between pose A and pose B, you got a primary breakdown. Between the pose A and the primary breakdown, you got secondary breakdowns. How many you have, who knows, depends on the job. Do you have easing? Do you have, arc definition? Do you have overlap definition? What is it you're trying to accomplish, okay? You might need 2 or 3. You might need 1. You might need none. Don't know, okay? And I have said in previous videos that I look at blocking as the step blocking, where you're not using any interpolation, no in-betweening at all, okay? You're not asking the computer to do any in-betweening, okay? I guess the easiest way to think of it is you're not asking your in-betweener to do anything yet. I think of that as a 2-stage process, okay? The first stage is those primary keys, the storytelling keys, the major motion keys, the big building blocks of what your scene is supposed to be about. That's the stuff, at the very minimum, you need to pitch to your director. or to whomever you're trying to get the shot past, you know? And so I think in terms of, okay, so I got, you know, a character does A and B in a shot, okay? Well, I might just show A and B and just get an idea, okay? But because the director says, yeah, I like it, go ahead with it, that does not mean that is the time, in my universe anyways, that is not necessarily the time to turn everything to spline and just start going. Because you need to be more patient. Patience. Patience is a hard thing to learn, especially when you're young and intolerant and impatient. See, here's the thing. You gotta know where you're going and where you're at, okay? So when I do just big major storytelling blocks, you know, that's my blocking, held poses, no in-betweenings, practically very, very few breakdowns even, okay? And I show that to the director, and the director buys off on it. You're like, okay, great. Now I can go and start filling in the information I need to do the rest, okay? A lot of times what I'll do is I won't even bother showing the director until I've done all these other things, like the breakdowns, okay? So you can show the director your scene anywhere along a continuum from basic storytelling poses all the way out to fully broken down and all your eases and, you know, end holds defined, all stepped. Okay, some people will do like five or six poses and show it to the director and get a buy off. Some people, they'll show the same scene. They'll have 25 drawings in there, but it will show everything. I mean, every arc, every overlap, every ease, every single little anticipation, everything will be in there as a drawing. Okay, it's a more traditional way of thinking. And you do run a risk if you wait that long to show it of putting a lot of work into something and then having the director going, yeah, don't like it. In which case you got to run the balance, okay? One is extreme minimalism, where you give the director very few things to work from, just the major keys, and you're kind of taking a chance that he might not see everything, okay? So you might look at it and go, I guess I like it. Yeah, you can go ahead. That's really his way of saying, you didn't show me enough to like or enough not to like. So keep doing more and show me again. That's really kind of what that means, right? I guess so. You can keep going. All right, that's different than like, I really like that. Go ahead, okay? All right, there's that confidence thing, okay? But if you show them the minimalist thing, okay, but that doesn't mean that's ready to go the post-blocking phase cleanup. There's just way too little information to hand over to an in-betweener, okay? You can go the other side and fill it out with all kinds of drawings and fill up stuff. And there you got to be really confident in what you're doing, okay? You got to be a bit cocky, okay? You got to be a bit of an old salt who's been around a bit. You got to be someone who is really confident in your ideas. You really thought it through. You know what you want to do. You're really confident in what you're trying to do. And when you walk into that daily screening room, you put that in front of the director and you think you have no choice but to like it, okay? That's the two sides of it, okay? Some animators, depending on how they feel about their work, sometimes it's a shot-by-shot basis. Sometimes I'm not really too sure if I'm getting the whole idea of the shot, and I'll just go over here, a couple of drawings, and say, what do you think? Okay. And other times I know exactly what they want, or I think I do, or at the very least I know exactly what I want, and I'm willing to just fill it all out. And I walk into the dailies room and I put it up on screen and I'm thinking he has no choice but to like it. Now, of course, he could say no, and I could be up the creek and have to change it all, but I'm taking a chance, okay? So that's the two ends of the spectrum. However, regardless of where you show the director, you're not ready to take things into linear or spline or in-betweening, okay? You're not ready to ask the computer to do any in-betweening until after this point, okay? This is the trick. This is the secret to making your cleanup so easy to deal with, okay? If you go from here, 5 drawings, and you got the 5 major ideas, and then you're like, yeah, director likes it, let's go ahead and work on it. You go out and you make it spline, you've got a soup. You have no idea what to work with, okay? And you end up chasing your tail. So what you need to do is you need to build your scene up to a point where it has enough information to give the in-betweener a decent shot at success. So that's the trick, really, the patience part of it. Just because a director says, yeah, I like your 5 drawings, doesn't mean you're ready to have it in between. No traditional animator worth his salt would hand 5 drawings over to an assistant and say, yeah, do this 4-foot scene for me. Okay, that's, 4 feet or even 6 feet. To do this 6-foot scene for me, that's 4 seconds. Okay? Nobody would hand over, 5 or 10, a stack of 5 or 10 drawings to an assistant and say, yeah, I want you to go ahead and in between that out for me the whole 4 seconds. It won't happen. Okay? They know in order for their assistant to have any idea what's going on, that they have to define for their assistant the timing and the poses and the breakdowns and the arcs and the timing charts and the drawings. It all has to be there before they hand that stack of paper over to the assistant for the assistant to start in-betweening, okay? Remember, your computer is not a magical box of fairies and pixies, okay? It's just a dumb in-betweener. It has no talent, it has no ability, it has nothing except the ability to mathematically recreate stuff. Okay? You are the animator. You have to tell the dumb assistant what to do. Okay? So if you lack patience and you want to jump right in, all right, let's start splining. It's going to look like poo. Okay? You're going to get the... Okay? You know what I'm talking about, right? You know exactly what I'm talking about. You hit spline, you hit play, and you're like... Oh, what happened? All the life's gone, all the timing's gone, everything's gone. It's because you weren't patient, okay? You need to be patient. You need to do your work as an animator and then have the in-betweener do its work as an in-betweener, okay? I'm going to keep harping on this. Okay, so that's the patience thing. So let's take a look at what patience looks like compared to impatience on the same scene, okay? I'm going to hop in the computer, show you some stuff, it's going to be good, okay?
When I talk about patience, let's take a look at what I mean by that. Let me show you an example here of a shot that has just enough information to it that you could probably put it into dailies and get some kind of feedback on it, whether the director likes it or not. I mean, it might be a little bit on the thin side, but for the most part, it has enough to communicate the basic idea of the shot. Guy looks at the ball, anticipates, swings through to try and catch it. Oops, he misses it, swings around, his momentum catches him, and as he looks at the ball, he loses his balance and falls over. There's the basics of the shot. You can capture the major parts of the motion here. You got you can show the big poses and the strong lines and stuff, and you could put this into dailies if you wanted to at most studios and get some kind of a feedback from it, okay? But that doesn't necessarily mean you're ready to go back here and start asking the computer to start filling in all of these frames. See these frames down here I'm scrubbing through? Because that doesn't necessarily play out too well. See, if I were to go ahead and take all of these poses and set their output tangents to be linear or spline instead of the stepped, you would end up with a bit of a soup. Let's go ahead and take a look at the graph editor here so you can kind of see what we're looking at. Let's go ahead and select a body part. Let's go ahead and just take the most basic one, the hips. Okay, and we'll come in here. Now there's something going on, say. Okay, let me try and, there we go. There's an implied sense of a compression of energy here, okay? You hold this value and then in one frame it changes. All right, there's an implied sense of restraint and then release, okay? There's a kind of a kinetic buildup and then a release, okay? You can kind of see that in through here. And you get that free when your tangents are set to stepped. What happens when you set things to linear is you completely lose that, and all of the flavor, the implied flavor of that hold is gone. And so what you end up with is just this slow morphing from one target to another. And this ends up being, and the computer is going to do exactly what you tell it to do. I want you in between that, and it'll go, okay, I've got 1 here and 17 there, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I've got 15 drawings to put in between. I'm going to take this mathematical value, subtract it from that mathematical value, divide it by 15, and then increase the increments by that amount every frame. That's what it does, okay? It's a big giant computer. It doesn't know any better. Well, you say, okay, well, what if I use spline? All right, so we hit spline. All right, see, now I'm starting to get ease in and ease out. See, what if I do this? Oh, yeah, maybe that's the trick. No, it's not. Because you're easing in and easing out this giant linear calculation of 15 drawings, it doesn't give you much to work with, okay? It's not that much better, all right? So let's go ahead and take a look at what this thing looks like if I were to take all of these keys and we were to turn them into, let's say, linear, okay? And we made a play blast to that. So let's take a look at what that play blast looks like. All right, I will go ahead and pull that guy up. Ta-da! Hello, computer. Thank you. And let's take a look at this dude right here. So, go ahead and double up the size on this so it scales pretty well. And I'll go ahead and I'll include this later as kind of like an addendum so you guys can kind of compare it at real time. But this is 24 frames, and you can see it's pretty hideous, okay? All the energy that you had by those implied holds is lost, okay? The reason being is that the computer is just doing what you're asking it to do. You gave it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 drawings for, you know, a 60 frame piece of action. Right? You gave it 10 drawings. Well, that means it is figuring out for every pose, it's coming up with 5 drawings of its own. All right, which means it is doing 80% of the framework here, and you've only given it only well, somewhere around 20%, and maybe not even that much. So you've got an issue here where you've got the problem is that it's just you're asking the computer to do too much. You're asking it to be too smart. You're asking it to be too clever, and it's just not going to be able to do that because it does not have enough information to be able to do the job well. And the same would be true of a human in-betweener. If you gave this job to a human in-betweener, they wouldn't understand how to do it either. So you've got to understand that this is not the place for you to go ahead and throw everything to spline. Even though you took it to a director and they said, yeah, it looks great, go ahead, send that thing forward, start moving forward on it. You've got to be more patient. You've got to understand that this is not yet ready to go this far. And we'll say, well, okay, I don't buy it, Keith. What if I take everything and make it spline? That'll make it better, right? Okay, so if I go ahead and I take everything and I make it spline instead, well, then I end up with this guy right here. And I think you'll agree that it's not really any better. It's just mushier, that's all. But the same core problem is there. You have far too much going on that isn't from you. And so, you know, this is very typical when you see this. You'll go ahead and you'll go back to your desk and be like, oh, this is great, this is awesome. You start working on it, and you put your very first play blast, and this is where you start losing your brain. You start going, oh my gosh, what happened to my beautiful scene? I had all this energy, and now it's because you're just asking the computer to do too much. It can't figure it out, okay? So you need to be patient. You need to be patient and give it an opportunity to succeed. Well, what does that look like? What does that opportunity to succeed look like? What do you need to put in here to make it function better? Well, let's take a look. So this is the same scene, but instead of jumping right into making stuff in between, as soon as the director said, yeah, I like where you're going with that, I said, well, this needs more information. So I decided to add some more stuff. And I did that by adding and thinking about breakdowns. Now I talk about breakdowns after that first stage of blocking. I talk about a second stage of blocking where you added breakdowns and all that stuff. That's in VTS 18, 19, 20, and 21. This is why I was talking about that stuff, because it's important to know just what you're asking the computer to do. I mean, he's your in-betweener. It's your in-betweener, okay? So you need to give it a fair chance. So what I've done here is I've added some definition to what was previously just sliding from one point to another. I've added some definition. So there's a little bit of a moving hold defined there, okay? If you were to take a look at that in a graph editor, we'll take a look at that hip translate X again. Bring that up and translate X. So what you see we've got here is we do have that change, and it's compressed to a certain point in time, but I'm defining what that change looks like, okay? In the meantime, I'm building this moving hold, which I could get for free, okay? That's not much of a difference, but I'm defining it. The reason why I'm defining it is because I know as soon as I switch this thing over to linear, I'm going to lose it. So I need to put that in there to say, remember, I want you to be held for about this long. And I also, just for giggles, put in a little bit of a change there because I wanted to think a little bit past that. But you don't even have to change it. You know, you can make it exactly like it was before. Even if you just do nothing more than define that hold, you give yourself a better structure to work from when you switch over and ask the computer to start in-betweening. Whether that in-betweening has linear or spline tangents is almost irrelevant. It's just important to know that when you're going to have, if you're a hand-drawn animator and you have an assistant, you would give them this one drawing, okay? You'd give them this drawing, and you would pretty much give them a little note saying hold for 8, okay? They would know to put enough of a moving hold in there, okay? And they might do, you know, depending on the style of the show, 1 or 2 drawings in between, but the idea is that they know they would hold that for 8 and then start the move back. And you know, all this stuff is being defined, whereas before we had 1 point, 2 points of definition, which ended up with just a straight line divvied up into 15 equal increments. Now we have started to define what that movement looks like. Now the computer can do a pretty decent job. We're only asking it to figure out how to handle making this look good, how to handle make this look good, how to make this and this look good. Here's another moving hold that I defined, and that pretty much is the end of I just defined two moving holds. Before and then during the anticipation, there's a hold there. Okay, and I hold that for a little bit, and then we move on. Okay, so the point being that you're not going to ask the computer. You're going to give it a better chance for success. Okay, if you go ahead and give it a little bit of extra definition. And this is what I'm talking about with patience. I didn't do a spline version of this, okay? I just went ahead and just started building more stepped poses in here or step drawings, because that's what I knew that the computer is going to need that. So I defined a moving hold. I defined a breakdown from this point to this point, okay? I said, well, this needs a little bit of a breakdown to kind of help define that movement. I know the movement's not going to be just 4 frames from here to here, because that's just too herky-jerky. So what I wanted to do was give it a little bit of a favor and then come up, okay? And then I define another moving hold, an extreme of that pose, as it were. And then I define another breakdown. And then there's one of the original keys that I sent off to blocking. So I sent this and this and this to blocking, okay? Those 3, but I've added this and this and this and this, okay? So I've pretty much doubled my work as far as the number of drawings, but you'll see I've made it so much simpler once I show you how this looks once you spline it, okay? So there I've defined the moving hold. I've added a breakdown here. There's one of the original poses. There's one of the original poses. There's another one of the original poses, and there's another one of the original poses. This was pretty well defined through the original blocking. Here's one though that I added. This was an original pose, and this was an original pose, but I needed to find a way to get from here to here that showed some definition. So I decided to start putting a breakdown. You could call it a breakdown, you could call it a pose, whatever you want, but I wanted to show this foot changing. I knew that the feet were going to have to change somewhere in here, so I decided to show the, to get that foot up off the ground, I needed to start showing it coming up. So that's what I did. It was on the ground and in the air. This is my blocking. Blocking, 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 blocking. Okay? This is just me doing my homework before asking my computer to in between it. Okay? And the same is here. I knew that he was going to fall. So in the blocking that I sent to dailies, I defined that his right foot comes in the air, and then it starts to come down, and then I have both feet in the air, and then he's out. Okay? What I've done is I've stuck one more drawing in between each. Okay, this one defines how that foot comes in the air and how the arms are starting to switch over and what's happening with the body. Here's one of the original ones, and then I started to define this foot coming down, and this hand swinging away, and this hand starting to come up, so that we could get to this point where this hand is down, this arm is up, and this leg is up. Okay, because we had to show this leg coming down. So I just thought through it more. Okay, and it's not perfect in through here, probably because I should have opposites working instead of having the right leg up and the right arm up at the same time and the left leg and the left arm down at the same time. I didn't think that far through it for this example, but if I were to go back and change it, that's probably what I would change. I'd probably make it opposite so that, but there's no rule about that. I would experiment with it at least. Let's say that. I would see how it looked. But I like the clarity of this pose. It's open and it's easy to read his face, which, if I had it a different way, might not have been so simple because the silhouette is really, really easy to read. So again, no rules. I would have maybe tried it and maybe gone back. But anyways, that's the thing, is you just have to do your homework. You have to think of what's going to happen and what's needed in the body and what's needed in the motion for the computer to figure this stuff out. So you kind of have to think of your action in terms of like as if you were seeing it with a strobe light on or something. And then I just added a few more drawings to kind of give it some spice. Okay, so how does this look blocked out? Okay, so it's got a little bit more definition to it. Okay, it's structurally pretty similar to what we had back here. If you take a look at this, the performance isn't really changed that much. I think I changed a little bit of the timing due to some of the things I added. I learned more information about what I wanted to do, so I was actually starting to be able to clean up some of the things before I even went to in-betweening. See, that's where patience comes in. And this is what I'm going to talk about next with confidence, is you got to really understand that what you're doing here is you're not blocking for approval, you're blocking for workflow. Okay, you already got the approval with this guy right here. Showed this to the director, and the director said, love it, go with it. Okay, you've got your blocking approval, but you still need to keep filling in the blanks. So that's what this is. And as you can see, it's got more information, but not a ton more. It's just thought through a little bit more, and it's got a little bit more definition to it, but you're giving the computer a better chance to succeed as an in-betweener. Okay, so if I put all this stuff over to linear, this is what we get. That's actually not too shabby. Okay, it's not perfect. There's a lot of work yet to be done on the scene, but you can see the core of your original performance. You can see your idea. You can see the structure in it, the timing still in it. This doesn't look anywhere near as scary to clean up as the other version. Let me see if we take a look at the other version. You see this, and this looks scary to clean up. This looks like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And this is what happens to CG animators, is we just get impatient, we go and we ask the computer to in-between far too soon, and we end up with this, and we think, what happened to my scene? All my ideas are bad. We're stuck. When all we really needed to do was a little bit more work, and then ask the computer to do its job. And this is eminently easier to clean up. This will be so much easier to clean up. Okay, so the power of patience before asking the computer to do the in-betweening is really one of the strongest core keys to good cleanup. It really is. And when I say all it comes back to good blocking and good breakdowns, really breakdowns in computer animation, in my world anyways, are the thing that gives you, it unlocked the doors to the mysterious world of confidence for me. Okay? So, what's this look like if we go ahead and put it in spline? It's not marginally better or worse, but you can see that you throw it in spline, and gosh, for a television show, if you have to do 20 seconds a week or more, if you have good ideas like this, a little bit of cleaning up here and there, you're not very far off. I've seen television shows with far worse animation than this, that's for sure. And so the whole point here is that you got to do your work. You got to take the time to have patience, to do your work, to think things through, to not ask your in-betweener to be a magician, okay? You wouldn't do it if you were a hand-drawn animator. You can't do it as a computer animator. The computer's not a magic box that magically turns poorly thought through ideas into good ones, okay? It just doesn't work that way. You have to do the work of an animator, and that's the important thing, okay? So that means, I've gotta spend a little extra time. I've got to delay my gratification and not necessarily see things moving right away. And I just got to think things through just a little bit more. I've got my approval, but it's not enough. It's not enough yet to start moving into the next part of the production. I have to do more work. And this is the same as it's always been in traditional. I've never met a traditional animator who was scared by this stage of the process. Never met a one, because they know what they have to do. It's just in a computer animation, we've been fooled into thinking that we have this magical in-betweener that will take our ideas and make them appear out of nowhere, and we can't do that, okay? So that's what I'm talking about. When I say patience, is take time, have the patience to work this stuff through. So what am I talking about when it comes to confidence? Well, let's see.
All right, I hope that was clear. I hope that kind of made sense to you. Now here's the second thing you need before you start going into post-blocking cleanup phase, okay? The second thing you need is confidence. Really, here's something that's really cool. Patience is the mother of confidence, okay? It really is. If you're patient and you think through your shot, and you think through the motion, you think through the breakdowns, you think through this stuff, then you're in a position of being confident, of knowing what your choices are. Then when the computer gives you a really just a messed up in-between, you're not worried. You're not like, oh my gosh, what happened? You're not stuck in a situation like that, okay? Because here's the thing. If you're patient and you do your homework and you do your work in the first part, and so in the example you saw, we've got the guy, his hands back here, and then he's got it like this to try and catch the ball. Well, I want that to be an under move, okay? I thumbnailed that, and I want that to be an under move before he twists over. But the way the math is working in the computer, it kind of comes like this, and then he kind of goes over. So there's that 1 or 2 frames where it kind of the rotation of the arm mathematically says, I want to go over into this instead of going under. Well, I know what I want there. I put in, a dragging breakdown and then a pose. I know exactly what I want there. And there's only like 2 or 3 frames between what I put there and what I put there where the computer is just doing a really dumb job, okay? Well, I can fix that. It's only 2 or 3 frames, right? That's where the confidence comes from. Confidence comes from knowing what you want to do. Think about it. Anything in life. If you know what you want to do, if you know how to do it, confidence is easy. Confidence is the first thing that comes from patience. Patience comes from being able to think it through and just be an animator. Okay? So you have to be willing to be an animator first, which means do the hard work of thinking things through and then recreating them. Okay? Put that information in there, ask the computer to in-between it, and when the computer does a really crappy job of in-betweening, which it's going to do because it's a computer, it has no brain, it's just a bunch of collection of silicon and electrical bits, it can't interpret very well, so that's where you have to come in and tell it what to do. Okay? So, that's the second thing that you need. You need patience to do your work first before you ask your in-betweener to do their work. And then after your in-betweener gives you their first pass and it looks like a total pile of butt, you need to have confidence to know exactly what you want to do. And you just go back to the in-betweener and say, no, not like that, like this. But if you don't know what you want to do, if you haven't thought about what you want to do until after the in-betweener gives you that first pass, then you are in a load of trouble. You are. You're going to be chasing your butt because you're going to be like, well, I don't know, that's kind of interesting. You know, it's kind of, what if I can run over? And rather than doing what you want to do, you do what the computer gave you. Who's in charge here? Okay? So, it's important for me anyways. I figure people pay me to animate. You know, computers come and go. But I'm the one who wants to animate. So, it's a little warm in here. Sorry about that. Anyways, so let's take a look at some other things that help you figure out confidence, okay? There are certain things that I do before I ask the in-betweener to do their job. Here's some more things I do, like I figure out arcs. Really, on all these stuff, I do this while it's in step mode. I'll show you how, okay? And then we'll look at some other things we do to build confidence, okay? So that you understand before you do, ask the computer to do the in-betweening, while you're doing your job, while you're exhibiting patience and building confidence. And then what we'll do is next month, I'll show you the specific process, okay? This month I needed to explain the larger concept of what it is we're trying to accomplish, and then some major building block aspects of it. And then next month, what I'll do is I'll get down to the nitty gritty and I'll show you in this scene that I'm working on exactly how I do it, how I clean certain things in certain orders, and why I think about certain things in certain ways, and why I work linear instead of spline right away. I'll explain all that next month. It's really cool. It's really interesting. The quick preview after I talk to you on the computer with this confidence stuff, you impatient little...
All right, here's our scene. Blocked out. It's all in step. When I talk about confidence, when you think things through, confidence comes from feeling like you've done everything you need to do for the moment. Okay, when you talk about sports teams being confident, the team that prepares the most, that feels like there are no gaps in their game plan, that feels like they've studied the other team the most, I mean, and they really understand what they're supposed to be doing, they're the ones who have the ability to execute what they want to do with a high degree of confidence. Okay, so what you get by thinking things through is you do get this little extra bit of confidence. Okay, so here we've got one drawing, a little bit of a moving hold, a breakdown and stuff. One of the things that I do early on at this stage, when I'm adding these extra little drawings and stuff, is I go ahead and I do something that a lot of people don't do till later. And one of those things that I do is I work out really strong silhouettes, really strong overlaps, and really strong arcs. Okay, it's important to think these things through at this stage, because if you ask the computer to in between bad arcs, or bad in between, or bad silhouettes, or bad overlapping, or dragging motions, then you're going to get results that are built off of less than well executed ideas. Okay, so let's take a look at this. If I have this has a really nice clean arc to it, which is what I wanted. I wanted this strong clean arc to read back from the ball, lots of good negative space, okay, and a strength into that. And here I wanted to have this kind of really good clean thing. Now that, to me, I spent a lot of time working and building this out. I mean, if I were to draw out this line here, you've got something that's well structured. Okay, the whole thing feels very fluid, and it feels like it's all heading right into here. Okay. All right, that's where we're after. Is we've just got everything comes right here. All right, we've got the strong negative space. Everything's kind of going into that. So, and then here is a pose that I worked out. It was in my original blocking. But by working this stuff out, I want to figure out how this works and how this arm comes over. I look at how the arm's going to transition over the top. And start coming over the top and coming down, I mean, you gotta spend your time and have confidence to know that, okay, this is an idea that's worth doing. All right, I believe in this idea. I've thought it through. This idea works for me. I can spend my time and really build a really good, solid, strong breakdown here that is going to get from here to here in a really, really strong, clear way. And by building this kind of a breakdown, you give the computer an opportunity to do a better than decent job. Okay, it's still not going to do a perfect job, and this is where confidence comes in again. Let's take a look at, if we take a look at this right here and look at this section, if we change it over to linear. Okay, so we change it to linear. So what we get is, all right, from here to here is okay. All right, from here to here, this is not what I wanted. Okay, I've got one in between by my in-betweener, which is not what I wanted. And then I'm back to what I defined and what I defined. So I've, out of 1, 2, 3, 4 drawings that are necessary for this piece of animation to work, I gave the computer 1, 2, 3 of them, and the only one that I gave it, it messed up. But I'm not concerned. I'm not like super wound up about it because I know what I wanted to do. And it's not like I overkeyed the thing, okay? I mean, I was very, very definite in through here because it's very fast action, so I needed to define it, okay? But what I really wanted here was I wanted the sense of the arm swinging through from the bottom, okay? So that's it. I am now cleaning up the in-betweener's mess, okay? That's it. All I need to do is just fix that. Everything else seemed to be working okay. The hips seemed to be driving okay. It's just that the math of the computer, it just didn't like this little rotational job right there. So all I did was I just changed it, okay? And if it doesn't look good in the graph editor, I mean, and here's where you can get caught up, okay? This is danger number 1 of graph editor world. Danger number 1 of graph editor world is you can look at rotate X, okay, that looks good, all right, like that, like that, like that, no problem. I see that, I could buy that, okay? And see this, okay, it's leading into that, it's pretty nice. I see this and I'm going to be like, no, I got to clean that. Why? Because it's going up, then down, then up again, and then down again. And then when you want it, when you're working in the world of trying to make your curves pretty, this is like a little, this is the danger thing. No, I can't have it. It must die. But that's not necessarily true, because that one little rotational change right there, that little hiccup in that curve, that ugliness in that curve, if I take it out, oops, I'm getting what the computer gave me, which is not what I wanted. Okay? Reason number 1 about confidence, that you work inside your camera view. Animate to what your audience will see. Your audience, we are not professionally filming the graph editor box. So who cares what it looks like? Okay? If the curve is ugly in here, you spend the time at this stage of your production to define it. And forever and always, you know what I'd like to have as a feature? I'd love to have in a feature the ability to kind of take that curve and put a little call out box on it and have that stored in the scene. And every time I open the graph editor, there's a little box right here that pops up over that thing and says, good. That's what I'd like to have, okay? I'd love to have something that would be able to do that, okay? Any of you Maya guys are thinking, go ahead and give me that, all right? But it's important to know what you want instead of taking the happy accident tour, and you get to define what you're after, okay? So, and we move through it, we move through it, we move through it. Now let me take a look at another thing that I work through a lot, and this is why I got my little drawing thing out mostly, not just to show it off, but just to show you what it is. No, go back to this and clear that. So let's go ahead and hide our curves. I wanted to show you the track of the arcs of the arms and stuff like that. This is stuff I work out at this stage, okay? So this wrist is right there, and then oopa, go here, and then go here. You see how this is working? Nice. Okay. And then go here. More nice. See that? And then more the same. And then to come back, it does the same thing. I'm going to come here. Oop. You're going to see that it's going to make, it's a bigger arc, but it comes back and it makes sense. Okay, so we've got that, and we've got that. So we go from here up like so. Okay, which is fairly easy to define. But then I work it through as it's reversing over. I have it kind of come over like so, and then I have it come over like so, and then I have it kind of working its way down here. So it's a little ugly in through the transition, but as it goes through, I mean, this is all happening very, very quickly. The reason why it seems a little ugly in transition is it's just doing a circulate at the top, which is fairly common as far as arcs. If you remember my conversation or my tutorial on arcs, we try to get these little loops at the end. But here's a transition where we're now changing from this major move to this major move. Okay, so if we go down here, we see now that the wrist is starting to kind of go like so. So if I go back, let me kind of define this as a completely new piece of movement here. And go down here and show this as an arc, and show this as an arc. And now you can start to see that we're really defining the arcs of this hand. The arcs are not something you figure out in spline mode at the end. It's too much of a foundation of your movement. It's far too foundational to leave to that point in the production. So I figure it out here. This gives me confidence when I'm cleaning up and I'm working with my in-betweeners work, which is the computer. When the computer gives me some cruddy looking in-betweens, I'm okay. I'm not worried about it because I know I defined all this stuff, and so I can trust it. Okay. So then we go here, and now it's going to be a part of a new move going under. Okay. So if we go ahead and take this and just erase all of this. Just keep that. Gotta make my eraser a little bit bigger, don't you think? Okay. Put that there. And then as he comes over, it's part of a new arc movement, and you can see it's off down screen. So now it's down here. So this is the last arc movement for that hand. And you can see as we looked at each distinctive part of the motion of the hand that it just has a flow wherever it goes. It just flows through and around and up and over and down, and I work through all that stuff. I work through all that stuff for every part of the body as much as possible. Okay, I try to do it for the head. I did it for the arms. At times I work it through for elbows. Certainly try and do it for hips. You know, you work your way through all of these problems as much as you can, all right, at this stage. Now sometimes it's really hard to see this stuff, so that's why I got this little program, Annotate Pro. It's like $19, and it's great for figuring out arcs on screen. Okay, there are tools inside of Maya for doing it, or other programs do it pretty well. There's always also the China marker on the screen. I just don't like, you know, drawing with dry erase on my screens and stuff like that, because it ends up looking really cruddy and you get dust everywhere. But this is what I'm talking about when it comes to confidence. Is you do your homework at this stage right here, and you're gonna have, when you come over and you finally look at, you know, you look at something like this and you play it, you know what you want, and you know what you worked out, and you can focus your notes more on cleanup and less on trying to invent the thing. Okay, if you try and invent all this stuff with your computer throwing their ideas on top of it, you're lost. You're in trouble from the start, and I always was. I could never figure out what was what. And so as time went by, I studied more about how these guys animated for 80 years before I ever started. How did they do it? And so that's all I'm trying to do, is share what I've learned and applied on the computer with all of you folks. And you can take it or leave it as you see fit. But I think my system works, and as we go further down in the next couple of months, you're going to see just how doing this little bit right here makes it easier to figure out later on.
Okay, I hope that made sense. Hope that filled in some blanks for you. Hope that helps you understand what I mean by doing your homework, exhibiting patience, building confidence. See, when you start to really apply a lot of thought to this stuff, now this is stuff I had to discover the hard way, okay? I don't want you to have to go through 6 or 7 years of making really crappy animation to figure this stuff out, okay? I'm just gonna tell you what I've learned, okay? This is what I've learned. This allows me to do what I do for a living, okay? So, the idea here is to understand the big stuff, okay? Now we'll start getting into the specific how-tos, okay? In case you didn't notice that I didn't really do much work in the graph editor here. And it's because I don't like the spaghetti box. It's too hard on my wrists, I'll be honest with you. If I was a scrub and F-curve tweaker like I was 6 years ago, I wouldn't have a job. I couldn't do this job anymore, okay? Because it's really, really hard on the wrist to scrub and to tweak those little teeter-totters inside the F-curve window. It's just hard. It's hard on the body, okay? So I've developed a way of thinking more traditionally, because you know what? I've never heard of a traditional animator having repetitive stress disorder. I've heard of them having, you know, drinking problems, but not of repetitive stress disorder. Maybe they do, but I haven't heard much about it. Whereas I know a lot of computer animators who struggle with this, okay? So it's a definite career hazard, so you have to think about this stuff. I know animators who have had to take years away from animation just to let their body heal, okay? This is not small stuff, okay? So there's another thing I do here, and we're going to get into this more next month, but I work linear first. You may say to yourself, well, why work linear? You know, a spline looks pretty good. And hey, you know what? No rules here, okay? You can work spline if you like, but I'll show you why I like to work linear and why that helps my spline be so easy. My spline stuff is so easy, I don't even think about it. I mean, it's just, when I get down to doing splines, there are times literally where I'm just watching a movie. I'm watching a movie and like cleaning splines, you know, because it's just grunt work, man. It's just, you're just down to the end. It's just like redrawing stuff, you know. It's just tiny little polished things here and there. And of course, I'm paying attention when the time comes to see the playback and make notes. Yeah, I'm definitely paying attention. Okay. But the execution of these things is fairly simplistic once you understand the process, okay? And I have a process, works for me, probably won't work for everybody. What can I say? Not everybody's the same, but perhaps it will help you, okay? I don't know, but I know it sure has made my life simpler. It made hitting footage quotas so easy. It made raising the level of my animation on the level of polish and how things looked. It started to build on itself and started to make sense. And now all of a sudden, adding that really fine CG buttery polish that a lot of times I don't like, but a lot of people want to pay you to do, I've gotten really good at it. Don't particularly enjoy looking at it, but you got to know how to do it in this job environment because that's what everybody's paying for, okay? So, me, I like to experiment with a little bit of texture in motion, and that's fine for me, but my job in this video series is to teach you guys how to be good in today's market, right? And we'll get to a point where after we get through this basic stuff, we'll move down the road and further VTSs. We'll get into more abstract things like motion, texture, and really kind of play around in the sandbox of my mind a little bit. But until then, this is what is expected of good CG animators. So I'm going to teach you how to do that because I've worked in that environment, function just fine there, good footage quota guy, a good scene quality guy. So I'm going to try and give this to you because this is how I work on stuff for anything from commercials to films. To me, the application is the same. It's just a matter of how much time you have to do each step. Okay, and you know there are certain points where you like on high footage environments you abandon the process a little bit sooner. A lot of times in high footage environments, I don't even bother splining. This is where the linear workflow came from. I don't have time to do teeter-totters if I got to hit 20 seconds a week, okay? If I have to do 18 to 25 seconds a week of footage, figuring out, making sure all the little teeter-totters are nice, don't have time, man. I just need to make sure that what I have in my head gets on screen, okay? And that means doing what I want to do. So that's why I started working linear first, okay? Well, all that's next month, and the month to follow. Anyways, I hope to give you an opportunity to succeed in this, the most scary of places for a CG animator to live, the post-blocking cleanup phase. Okay, I'm sweating to death. It's hot in here. I'm going to wrap it up this month. Hopefully next month I'll have air conditioning in my office. Oh, that would be so nice. But until then, you guys be good to each other. God bless, and be good.